Hi, and welcome to Antique Quest. Today we're doing sterling or silver plate. We get asked this question a lot when we're in the States. Somebody opens up the sideboard and there's all sorts of pieces and they'd like to know which ones are sterling and which ones are plated. This is going to be a two-part because there's a lot to know about this, and it's something that you're going to run into quite a bit. If you're out thrift shopping, garage selling, that sort of thing, you're going to see a lot of sterling silver plate, hopefully more sterling. But you need to know how to tell the difference between them. Now, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody that subscribed. It's really encouraging. Lots of great comments, some good ideas. We've had people asking about doing an episode on lanterns, on knives. All we're writing these down and we're going to use them now. So we really appreciate that. And I did talk about this flitz in the gold video that we did, and if you haven't seen that, go to our page and watch that. And just to get us started, because by the end of this I'm just going to show you how well this works. So it's really cold in here. I had to put it in front of the heater at first. It is winter here. And this little cup, which is black, 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 you're just going to rub it on like that. It's almost like a toothpaste. Doesn't smell. Alright, and we'll just let that do its thing while I talk to you about silver plate. Now, I have run into people, and you'll find them on the internet, that will say, oh, I can just look at it and I can tell it's silver. No. If you're looking at silver plate, you're looking at silver. If you're looking at sterling, you're looking at silver. I've had other people say, I can feel it, I can tell by the feel. Nonsense. You can't tell by the feel. I even ran into a fellow once that said he could taste the difference. I'm not going to lick any of these to tell you if I can taste the difference, but I'm sure he has a pretty fond liking to the taste of sulfur. Okay, so you can't do it that way. So I'm going to show you how you can tell, and there's a few surefire ways. You may develop an eye after years and years. I will give you that where you'll see in some of the silver plate, you just kind of know it's going to be silver plate as soon as you pick it up. But there's a lot that you won't unless you look for the right mark in the right place and you understand what you're looking at. Okay, so let's get started. In part one here, we want to tell you about plate. And the marks you're going to see commonly. And one of them is EPNS. Now what that stands for is electroplated nickel silver. You are going to run into a mark on the back that will say EP on copper. This particular one that we just did on the bottom, it says EP on brass. EP is electroplating. And what that is a thin, very thin layer of silver that is electroplated on. Now, a lot of people will tell you sterling and silver plate, and silver plate's worthless these days and you're not going to get anything for it, and they tell you to buy sterling so you can scrap it. Slow down. Silver plate, there is some very valuable silver plate that you need to know about, and it's called Sheffield plate. And this was the first plating, and this is where a layer of fused silver is put over copper and sometimes Britannia metal, but for the most part you're going to see it over copper. Now this dates from the late 18th century to about the mid 19th century. This is an example of it right here. Now this is a Sheffield plate, and the first thing you're going to say is, I've got something in my cupboard that says Sheffield plate. You very well may, but genuine Sheffield plate is not going to be marked Sheffield plate. If it's marked Sheffield plate, you're dealing with a reproduction that's brought out much later and it's electroplated. You may get one with a little sphinx looking lion character on it and it'll say Sheffield reproduction. Well, these are all electroplated, but this is the genuine article. This is actually late 1700s, and this is actually by Matthew Bolton, and his touch mark is right here, and that's going to be an important difference that you're going to look for on early Sheffield plate. It will have touch marks that don't coincide with sterling ones, and you'll be able to look up the maker. Now certain makers, these can be very valuable, and a lot of people are seeing these in their thrift store. They see a little copper shining through. Now this one is worn right through to the copper, and they think, well, silver plate is not worth anything. So to give you an example, if this was a Matthew Bolton tea caddy, which is a box about yay big with a lid that opens up that they'd keep tea in, and you actually saw copper coming through on the high edges, most people will ignore that entirely. That's probably $500 to $1,000 selling in England. So maker is very important. Telling between Sheffield plate and later electroplate is very important. Now, anything that says the word plate in the mark, this piece for example, this right in the mark, it says ducal plate. Right away you know that is silver plated. Okay? Sheffield plate is not going to be marked that way. It was a very early thing. It was the beginning of silver plate, and you can find some fabulous items. So as much as sterling is what you really want to look for, again, please don't scrap it. These particular cups are worth far more because of what they are than what they're worth in intrinsic value for its weight in scrap. Silver's not terribly high right now, and even if it was, it's not going to catch up to the value of these early little tankards. Now, part two, we're going to go over a lot more of the sterling marks and what to look for. Very important though is to make sure, I'm not telling you to run out there and buy a lot of silver plate, but you want to make sure if you're seeing Sheffield plate that you're not turning it down. How else can you tell? That's a good question. So if this still had its silver on it and I polished it, okay, it's going to have somewhat of a bluish tint to the silver, whereas electroplating, once it's polished, is going to look more of a bright white. So Sheffield plate, you're going to see a bit of a more of a mellow color, and this is after polishing, so do not mistake that for tarnish, which always looks a little bluish. After it's cleaned, this silver is going to be more blue, and I doubt you'll be able to see it on here, than this, which is more of a white. Now, if you're really in doubt and you have a great piece, maybe you have a tilting tea kettle from the late 1700s, early 1800s, something like that, something that's worth quite a bit of money, and you can't find a touch mark. You can actually acid test this or have it done at a goldsmith. My wife does that sort of thing. And here's the difference. Sheffield plate, they use sterling silver. Now, sterling silver is 925 parts of 1,000 is pure silver. And that's why you commonly see a mark which is 925. That designates something as sterling. On electroplating, they used pure silver. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, if it's pure silver, it's got to be worth more. No, it is thin, thin, thin. It is actually hammered to cover in the pores afterwards on silver plate. It's electroplated on there. It's a very, very thin covering. Whereas this was fused sterling, fused right to the copper. In some instances, you'll see, if you get a magnifying glass and you look at the edges, you can actually see a line where the silver was actually curled over onto there and then fused to the copper. So that's actually a big difference. Sterling silver on the original Sheffield plate opposed to pure silver on electroplate. So be mindful of Sheffield plate. No one else is going to tell you that, and no one else is talking about that. But there's some very good collectible pieces there. Now, we are going to just give her a little cup of polish here. It's been sitting there for what, maybe 5 minutes? So we just start to rub like so, and it comes right off, and it comes right back to the silver. Now, like I said, it's freezing cold out here. It's probably 5 degrees in here, if I'm lucky. Not even that. It's probably 0. But we just put a little bit on there, just a little rub. No sulfur smell, beautiful to work with, and it'll clean this up really nice. And then your rag actually has it in there for a very long time, and a lot of times, if it's not as bad as this, which is sat for probably 15 years since we even tried to clean this. So, I mean, it was black. You know, most things you could just use your cloth again and rub it down. We have had this tube of flitz for probably 4 years now. We do a lot of jewelry, a lot of sterling. It goes a very long way. We do have a link down below for you. It comes in all sorts of sizes, so if you follow that link, there's all sorts of different varieties they'll bring up on the page for you. But a great thing, a lot better than these other silver polishes, and hopefully you can see that, polish that right up real quick. And that's in freezing cold weather. It'll work much better in your house. You know, like this old sterling plate here. Just a quick rub, because it wasn't black. And you can see where the marks are nice and visible now. Easy, great stuff. Just wash your hands afterwards, no big deal. Now, as far as silver books go, you really should invest in these. Now again, I'm going to leave you some links. I'm going to talk more about these in the next video, which is going to be on sterling. But this one on English silver hallmarks. There's a link below. This book will cost you $10.95. This will tell you all your major towns, the years of your sterling, when it was made. It's a nice little pocket one. You can throw it in your pocket and head out thrifting, garage selling, whatever you want to do, antique show. It's going to tell you most of the marks you're going to run into as far as sterling, because most of the stuff we run into is British. Most Canadian and American usually has the name sterling in it. There are exceptions, and again, that's going to be in the next video. If you can find this book, Canadian Silver Hallmarks, this is a great little one as well. Long since out of print, hard to find, but it gives you photographs of various knives, forks, spoons, these sorts of things, all the marks that you find on Canadian silver, which tried to imitate British hallmarks. We didn't have an actual standard like the Brits did, where they had to be very precise in how they marked their silver. We, on the other hand, just sort of made it look like it. So we'll have a head that looks like the head of a queen, and then we'll have something that looks like a lion rampant, which is the sterling mark. And it's good to have that, because you're going to find a lot of early Canadian silver here in Canada, and it might look like a silver plate mark, because silver plate tried to do the same thing. They tried to make their silver plate look like sterling. They couldn't copy it exactly, so there's little variations you have to watch for, and these books are really going to help you out. This one by Tardy is hands down the absolute best book you're going to get for hallmarks for all over the world. And this is going to give you all of them, because once you get into France and places like this, you're going to find sterling that has strange marks, and you're not going to find them without this book. They're going to be very difficult to find. This, I thought this was out of print. I did find a link for it. I found 3 links actually. The first one was $650 some odd. The second one was $195, and I was thinking, boy, maybe I'll sell this, but I really need it. And the last link I found was $84. That sounds like a lot for a small little book, I know, but believe me, this book has made me more money than that I don't know how many times. So these are great things to have. If you're going to look for silver, you're going to need a magnifying glass, and you're going to need a couple good reference books. You can go down rabbit trails all day long on the internet, and you're not going to find what these are going to give you just like that. They're set up really nice, easy to follow. And if you need some silver cleaning, you can't go wrong with Flitz. I don't recommend a lot of products, that sort of thing, but this stuff, I love it. I wouldn't even consider using anything else for silver cleaning. But next week, we're going to give you a bit more on these silver ones. This is an 18th century little salt cellar. We're going to talk about repose, which is the pushed out design here, and how to find silver marks that other people are missing, because some of these tankards I really got a great deal on, because other people didn't know where to find the silver mark. They were looking underneath and it's not there. So we're going to fill you in on all that later. Thanks very much for watching. So remember, EP means electroplate. If you see that anywhere in the mark, you have electroplated. If you see the word plate anywhere there, you have electroplated. And it's not terribly valuable these days. Again, decide by the item. So if it's something extravagant, if it's a tilting tea kettle, something big, you know, a trophy or something like that, it has value for what it is rather than it being silver plate. But if we're just talking about trays and platters and smaller dishes, silver plate's not going to really get you any much money. So you have to judge the item, and I'm looking forward to next week where I get to talk more about sterling, and we'll go over all this stuff with you then. Thanks very much for watching. God bless.